Okay, so let's turn to some other examples now. And we're now going to focus on just looking for solutions that are in 0 to 2 pi. So just one turn about the circle. Okay, we actually don't include the 2 pi itself, as that's the same as 0. Okay, so let's consider some equations here. For example, you might look at the equation 1 plus sine of theta equals 1/2. And so for us to solve our equations here, first thing that we need to do is get the trig function by itself equal to a number. That's what we want. So here we would have to begin by moving that 1 over to the other side. That would give us sine of theta equals 1/2 minus 1, be negative 1/2. And at this point, then we find the reference angle. Now that we have trig function equal to some answer, we ask for a reference angle. Right, 1/2 is one of our exact values. So we recall that 1/2 comes about from the sine of pi over 6. So then take our pi over 6 angle. Okay, and now we're going to take that pi over 6 angle and we're going to put it into the quadrants where sine is now negative. Which, remember, our little diagram, all students take C. So sine is positive in the first and second, so it will be negative in the third and fourth. So for the negative answers, we would take that reference angle and put it into the third and fourth, a reference angle of pi over 6. Right, and then we work that out. Right, so in the one case, we're going to be short of pi, or we're going to be past pi, so it'll be pi plus pi over 6, 1 1/6, or 7 pi over 6. And in the other case, we're that much short of 2 pi, so it'll be 2 pi minus pi over 6 will be 11 pi over 6. Okay, so now we found our solution. So again, it's really important to remember those exact values. Exact values. Okay, let's turn to a second example. So we have square root of 3 tangent theta minus 1 equals 0. So to solve this equation, we're going to once again need to get the trig function by itself. So here we can bring the 1 over. And then divide both sides by square root of 3. We get 1 over square root of 3. And we can rationalize that as square root of 3 over square root of 3. And we just have to remember which one that is. Now, if you have trouble keeping track of those, just remember your sine and cosine. So we have two choices here, right? It's either pi over 6 or pi over 3. And so we kind of check in our mind. Remember, tangent is sine over cosine. So sine of pi over 6 is 1/2. Of course, that makes cosine of pi over 6 is square root of 3 over 2. And if we look at that, we say, well, the halves would go away. We have 1 over square root of 3, so therefore pi over 6 is the one we want here. Therefore, pi over 6 is the one we want. So our reference angle here is pi over 6. And then we take that pi over 6 angle and put it into the quadrants where tangent is positive, because we're equal to positive 1 over square root of 3, or square root of 3 over 3. So remember, all students take. So all, so we'll put it in here, and also in the third quadrant. So one of the first quadrants easy, of course, it's just that answer. So we take just that answer. So pi over 6. And then if we're in the second quadrant, remember we're that much past pi. We're that much past pi. So it'd be pi plus pi over 6 would be 1 1/6, or as an improper fraction, 7 pi over 6. 7 pi over 6. Okay, so let's move on to another example here. This one is a little bit more involved. Here we have 4 cosine squared theta minus 3 equals 0. So this time we're dealing with a cosine squared. This time we're dealing with a cosine squared. So the process, though, is still the same. We need to get that trig function by itself. So bring the 3 over to the other side. That should be the cosine theta. I left that out. So we bring the 3 to the other side. Divide both sides by 4. And that gets us down to cosine squared equals 3/4. Now remember, at this point, if you have something squared, in this case we do, we have a cosine squared, equal to something, we can solve by applying square root to both sides. Remember then, when we apply square root to something squared, as is the case here, right, remember that brings out a plus or minus. And then we simplify second side here. Square root of 3/4 would be square root of 3. Square root of 4 would be 2. So we have cosine theta equals both plus square root, positive square root of 3 over 2, and negative square root of 3 over 2. The process still doesn't change yet. We still want the reference angle. One angle between 0 and 90 degrees will give us a cosine of square root of 3 over 2. This is where, again, it's so important that you memorize those exact values for sine and cosine at least. And we remember that that would be pi over 6. Sine of pi over 6 is 1/2, so cosine is the other way around, square root of 3 over 2. Now, because of the plus or minus, when we go to this reference angle question now, we actually take that thing and we put it in all 4 quadrants, because we want when it's both positive and negative. All right, take that reference angle, throw it into all 4 quadrants, and work out our angle. So in the first case, we're just the first quadrant itself, so it's pretty straightforward. So the first angle would just be theta r in the first quadrant. Right, then we're in the second quadrant. We're short of pi, so it'd be pi minus the reference angle, 1 minus 1/6. would be 5 pi over 6. And then we move to the third quadrant where we're that much past pi. So pi plus pi over 6, 1 plus 1/6 be 7 pi over 6. And then we continue on 2 pi minus 1/6, 2 minus 1 would be 11 pi over 6. So we get our uh, 3 angles there. Okay, our 4 angles, sorry. Okay.